Welcome to the event. We have a digital audience as well here. This is our first time, so please excuse the technical snafus and things like that. Welcome to our 13th event. Jason in person. Oh, thank you. Yeah.
We're going to summarize the first 12 in song. So
we have about 40 people here in person, and we're looking at probably around 60 online. So people online that can't network with us right now, we'd love for you to introduce yourselves in the chat. Tell us where you're from, your business, those kinds of things. Try to get the conversation going there. And then we're going to be fielding questions from online and in person. We have generated quite a few questions just based on the topic itself ahead of time so that we can kind of keep flow going. I'm taking over. Sorry, Jason, go ahead.
First of all, I want to say thank you to Avery's Living. They have such generous hosts with this room, this setup, the breakfast, chef oriented. So thank you to them. Also, we'll walk through some of the slides here. So we've been doing this for a while. As Ian said, this is number 13 for us. All along the way, we've had a great team that's helped plan it, come up with speakers, all that type of thing. So left brain, right brain, Ian's business, creative consulting, Race Point Law, Mike Davis, and TAD, the Alternative Board, Seattle, Kelly Casper. Joining the panel also this morning, Ken, thank you for being Cloud9 Financial, no longer the previous.
That's right. Yes, that's right.
So these are the speakers. Sorry, I just did that. So what we're going to do today is kind of do some back and forth. What we'd like to do as well with you, if questions come up that you want asked, we have some microphones here in the front. We'll just have to be kind to pass them back since I have to be over here for now. But let's start off with a couple questions from the panel that came up previously. When you started your business, what knowledge did you have that was most valuable? Open to anyone.
I guess I'll take that one. I think you don't really need the knowledge. I think starting a business is an exercise in figuring it out for yourself. But what I would encourage everyone to do is find experts that they can trust and rely on. You know, find your accountant, find your lawyer, find your marketing person, find mentors, mentees, you know, be a mentee, be these things for each other, and really rely on those people, you know, build those relationships. It's not a transactional thing. It's not talk to your accountant when you need your taxes done. It's talk to your accountant, your bookkeeper regularly and let them know what you're doing and any questions you have, because those people know their stuff and they're here to help you. It's literally their job.
That was one of the best pieces that I had learned as well, was if you can afford it, delegate it, because you're going to be pulled thin in everything that you're doing. And you're a one-person band. You're doing sales, you're doing marketing, you're doing finance, you're doing all of those things. So finding the people that have already done it, I think, is one of the biggest lessons that I took away too.
And I would add to that there are a lot of resources out there for people that are starting businesses. The SCORE program through the SBA, for example, is free mentorship. So they typically have volunteers who will come in and work with people who are starting a business. There are a number of resources out there that are there to help small businesses be successful. So I would encourage looking into what types of resources are out there that you could utilize while you're exploring the either start or growing of your business.
And if all else fails, there's the lovely ChatGPT that you can fall back on, of course. Or, I mean, as everybody knows, you can find anything on the internet. Just make sure it's a valid source, certainly.
Yeah, 100%.
Along the lines of bank accounts, I can think probably more families. What should you plan for your business?
Great question. So one of the things that I see the most often that business owners make at the beginning is not separating their personal business, their personal funds and finances from their business finances. Super critical to keep them separate for lots of different reasons, some of which Mike can attest to as a lawyer. And so not only from a legal perspective and a liability protection perspective, but also from an ease of doing your reporting for financial purposes, for, you know, filing taxes, for getting your P&L at the end of the year when it's tax time. I can't tell you how many clients and or people that I talk to that are not clients that are running around right now trying to gather all their information. If you've got it all in a separate place and you're only putting business expenses on a business credit card and funds coming into and out of a business checking account, you will thank me later.
Another question I thought was really good was how important is mindset starting your business?
Huge.
Everything.
Yeah.
To me, it's everything. I had no idea what it was going to be like to own a business, and I still don't know. I think that I'm constantly coming from a place of curiosity, which is why I'm still here. I think what you are not told when you're an entrepreneur, when you first start, is that all we're really doing is solving problems. And then we wait until the next problem comes up, and then we solve that one. And that's just been how you achieve new growth and new levels of success, but also that's just how you survive. There's over 500,000 businesses that open every month in the United States. So there's lots of competition out there, and mindset to me is everything. If you're stagnant and you're thinking that you're done, you're going to start falling behind, in my opinion. So mindset and resiliency is everything. You're going to fall a lot on your face, or I did anyway. I don't want to assume, but yeah, I still fall all the time, but it's about failing quickly and then getting back up and doing something different.
And learning something from
Right.
the failures.
Learning.
You gotta, like, failures aren't failures if you learn something, right? They're experiments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you will fall down. Business is
100%.
hard. You will fall down. If you're not falling down, you're not working hard enough.
Yep.
You're not trying new things. So kind of expanding, have an expansive mindset as well. And I think, Kelly, you deal with this all the time in terms of mindset with your panel, right? With your board.
Yeah, I mean, mindset's huge. If you're doing that sort of self-doubt talk to yourself, you're going to manifest that. If you're talking to yourself in a positive manner and you're really, yes, I believe in myself, I know I'm helping others, I can do this, it's gonna give you that added edge. It really is very critical. I mean, the psychology of it is huge in the sense of having that positive mindset.
Another thing, I'm not on the panel, so I'm taking a short break here. But one of the things I would say, being here, this shows a great part of your mindset. You want to grow your network. You want to learn. It's so critical to have other people in your circle that you can say, man, I'm going through this. I'm dealing with this. I have the opportunity for them to speak. This is what helps.
Yeah. Know that you're not going through it alone. I mean, there's almost 40 people here. There's a ton of people in our digital audience right now. So building that community to me, I think, is insanely helpful. Yeah. In my experience, being a business owner, it's the quote that I still quote today is that owning a business is like being in prison, and the day you sell your business is the day you get out of prison. Because it is, to me, it is all consuming, but in a great way, right? It's passion for me. Toxic passion.
Solitary confinement.
Right. Yeah. Are there any questions? Oh, sorry.
People that are on the live stream, if you have questions, put in the chat. But want to see what questions we have around the room, and you can either talk really loud or we can hand a microphone to you, whatever your preference. You prefer loud or microphone?
Microphone.
Microphone.
Let's do microphone, then the mics might pick it up.
For the LinkedIn folks.
Yeah.
You're good.
Okay. So Pam specifically, when starting a new business, is it important to build credit for your business and open a business credit card specifically? And if so, when?
So the building your credit aspect of it, if you haven't owned a business, is going to start with your personal credit line, certainly, right? So when you apply for a credit card, they're going to do their background checks on your personal credit score. That's what matters, is your personal credit score. The business bank account, my understanding, of course, is they're going to look at you collectively, right, as your entire financial health as a person in society, right? I say open up a business credit card, or even just a debit card from your checking account. If you don't qualify for a credit card yet, you can also just have a debit card and use that when you're making purchases as well. Does that answer your question?
Who else has questions they want to ask? Oh,
we did hire somebody for tax this year, but it was more personal plus business. Every time we have the quarterly meeting, their point is to come up with questions. But if I don't know what I need to know, how do I come up with questions? Because there's so much information out there with the King County and then Washington State and then federal stuff. Where do I even start? What am I supposed to be asking?
Yeah. I would say this is where you lean on your experts. This is where you lean on your mentors, because honestly, you can't know what you don't know, right? But there are people that, like myself, I know the law, right? You can lean on your lawyer for your legal questions, your finance accounting person for those sort of questions. Find people who are great mentors to you, who you can just go to and be like, hey, this is what I'm experiencing. Help, right? And it can be that simple.
The first year that I had reported taxes, I hired a CPA and I told them I own a business and I need to file taxes. That was it. And I said, I want you to take care of it all because I am not the expert. You are. You're the subject matter expert that I'm hiring you for to solve this problem. I don't want to think about it. And they have been my CPA for 4 years now, just because to me, I like to think about bandwidth, right? As an entrepreneur and an owner, your energy levels for different things are going to be different. You're going to burn yourself out pretty quick. So if you can, I would absolutely try to outsource that. If you have a friend in the network or something like that, like you can start there if money or budget is an issue. But things like that, to me, I don't even want to mess with the IRS. I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to do any of that stuff. Give it to an expert. That would be my recommendation.
Be part of unknown.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what to ask.
Yep.
But just like, come with questions.
Yeah.
Yes.
The whole point of asking you is you tell me that the things that I need to know.
Exactly right.
I don't get that.
Think of it as an interview. That's really what I did. I'm hiring you.
Yeah.
So how are you going to support me and how are you going to solve my problems? That's the mindset shift that I experienced as an entrepreneur too. How are you going to help me solve my problems? Very selfishly. I need to be successful. How are you going to help me solve my problems?
Yeah.
And
it's
one thing
I hope that's helpful.
One thing I would add is CPAs are tough to come by right now. A lot of CPAs are retiring. The older generation are retiring, and they're not being replaced by the next generation because people are being deferred away from wanting to work 80 hours a week during busy season. And so I think what my clients and what people that I've talked to during discovery meetings is that's one of the first questions is I can't find a CPA who's taking clients on right now, or I'm not getting what I want from my CPA because they're so busy and they're transactional, right? So I would say I have some recommendations for you. I can talk to you offline, certainly. But it is an interview. It is letting them know what you don't know and what kind of help you need. Because some CPAs are really just want to do the transactional once a year, do your filings. Some have tax strategy offerings. Ask them about their tax strategy offerings, right? Ask them about being on retainer. Can I call you when I have questions? Or, can we meet quarterly, right? So setting up that personal relationship with them. My bookkeeping firm also, we are knowledgeable about a lot of things to do with taxes. We're not CPAs in my particular firm, but we do have experience with it. And so if you find a good bookkeeper that knows their stuff, they can also join you on those calls with your CPA. I partner very closely with my clients' CPAs, whoever they are, to help them ask the right questions. Yeah. You're
And
welcome.
Follow on to that real quick, I would imagine not just in that realm, but there's other things that you might want to farm out or hire somebody
Yep.
for.
Yeah, and I would add to that that so oftentimes small business owners, entrepreneurs have a passion for what they're doing. And it may not be that they actually are knowledgeable in running a business. And that's very common. So don't try to do it on your own. Lean on others. Find people who are experts in that area. Because you're not going to know all the answers. And, you know, being passionate is amazing and is great and is going to give you that drive.
Damn. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not enough.
Yet,
Yeah.
you might want some help.
yeah,
And so, you know, look for the help when you're at that point of like, I don't know what to do.
Mhm.
That's the time that you need to find someone to help you work through that problem.
and don't be embarrassed to ask questions. Like, honestly, just start asking questions, and they will help guide you to where you need to be. Like, I've heard a lot of really weird, off the wall questions in my time, and you know, some of those questions are the best because it gives me insight into you and your business and where you are, and I can go, okay, what you said isn't quite right, but now I can transition you to where you actually need to be in the question you're actually asking about.
Also, this app, Pam has a great membership.
Mm.
You were saying you don't know what you don't know. I actually joined Pam's membership last week, and I asked her all my silly questions because I was like, I just don't know where to begin. Talk to me like I'm a 2-year-old, and it was really helpful to leave that with insights on how I could actually move forward and kind of get rid of all the guessing that I was doing. So I just wanted to mention that if anyone is interested as well.
There you go. Testimonial.
Thanks,
Love
Amanda.
It.
Raise your
Yeah.
into your role. You pass it to the back.
Hi, I'm in the back. I think y'all too. I was wondering if the panel, give me an example of when you decided to take outside money. So, like in the context of I've bootstrapped everything so far, when do I consider taking outside? You know, is it just for like a big project for expansion, or like if God forbid the business goes bankrupt, how do I protect some of my personal assets? Maybe you guys can.
Congratulations, number one. I think that's a big.
Well, we'll see.
That's a that's a new level for sure.
It depends on your business,
Yeah.
right? Service-based
That's a
businesses
tricky
don't
one.
have as much overhead. They don't need a storefront necessarily. Yourself, right? You're running a business where clients come in and you need space. And so few things to think about, certainly, and please feel free to add on here, but do the analysis of how long is it going to take to, it's okay to borrow, number one. It's okay to use other people's money, right? Because if your ROI over a specific period of time makes you money, right? If your interest on a loan is 7%, but your net profit, your profit margin on what you're spending in your month is 20% or increases more because you're doing it, those are good business decisions, right? Everybody's situation is going to be a little different. I always recommend that every business have access to a line of credit for short-term needs. When it comes to capital, it's a little more complex, right? You've got to qualify for those loans. So you've got to have your finances in order, right? They've got to know what the health of your business is because they're taking a risk. The banks are taking a risk on you. And so there's a lot of factors that go into qualifying for it. Sometimes it's absolutely necessary to get capital for big expenditures, right?
I think from my sort of standpoint, I run a service business that's really low overhead, and that's my intention. When people approach me for partnerships, collaborations, white glove services, all those things, I've had a ton of them. I've been burned enough now where I know to ask the questions of why are you looking to invest in me? What is your end goal? What is your participation level here? Are you looking for equity? Are you looking for money? Like what is your intention to expand my business? And then get really, really granular about those things. Because literally, a spoiler alert, everybody that I have talked to, I am not working with because they were looking for the short-term win. And I'm not here to play that game. I'm here to play the infinite game, which is the mindset shift in entrepreneurialism in my mind. I'm not here for anybody else, but to make my own business great and better and help people. So being extremely selfish about those things. If you're coming into my space, I need to know why and for what and all of those reasons. So I hope that's helpful to pull the emotional aspect. I love the financial aspect too, but the emotional one for me, I've been burned too many times that it's like I look at everything through a different lens now. It's skeptical.
Yeah,
So-
I was addressing more like getting a loan from a bank,
Yeah.
but I think your question now that I hear you talking is more like, what about outside money, like investors outside money? Yeah.
Yeah.
Great question. It's really, what is your end game?
Mhm.
And contracts and bringing in partners, that's when you talk to a lawyer. Like if
Yeah.
you're bringing on a business partner, make sure your stuff is set up right before anything is inked, before the hand is shook. Just make sure you're set up properly.
I can vouch for that. I had a cease and desist. I've been through kind of the ringer in that way. So legally getting yourself set up before any of those things, I think is a big priority as well, for sure.
Next question. Carl?
I get a softball from Mike. What do you think about your exit strategy?
When should you think about your exit strategy? Yeah,
When you
now,
start your
like
business.
yesterday. Yeah, I think having a destination in mind, even if you don't really know how to get there, is a really great thing to do. And that's legal documents, of course, that can sort of provide an out in unexpected circumstances, even when you're really, really new to your business. But start thinking about these things right at the very beginning. And I'm sure Pam can talk about this more. Just have your books right, have your legal right, have your marketing right, get your business running on its own. And that's a business that's ready to sell, right? If they're not buying a job, they're buying a business. It's very different. So yeah, think about it now. Build your business around whatever your exit plan happens to be. And yeah, go from there.
And sometimes when you start as a solopreneur, you really don't know, right? But it's something that you should always think about in the back of your mind. Right now, maybe you're a solopreneur and you just want to do your craft and grow your business by yourself, but there may come a point in time when you realize this could be bigger than just me, and I do want to start to grow. And now you want to start thinking 1, 2, you should always be thinking years in advance, but it's not necessarily going to be out of the gate that you're thinking of that, but know that it's going to happen at some point where you're going to decide, where do you want to pivot your business, right? From being on your own to growing, to scaling, to hire employees, to maybe bringing on investors, to then maybe selling it, right? Me, for example, when I started my business, I knew that this was going to be a business that I'm going to have an exit strategy for in 5 to 7 years, right? Let's face it, I'm over the 50-year mark, right? So I don't want to work forever, but I'm planning and creating a structure for my business such that I'm growing it to the point where I can either sell it, bring on a partner, something like that. So I don't know that it's like, I just don't know that it's always right there at the front of your mind when you first start, but
I actually read a statistic this morning that 85% of people don't know how to exit their business.
Yeah.
Which I thought
Right.
was, I mean, I don't know. I'd probably just shut it down, really. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
Pretty much every business can be sold. You may have to do some things in preparation for that, but there's markets for business. There are business brokers whose job, like a real estate agent, is to help you sell your business. So these people exist, and that's absolutely an option. And if you're planning for that ahead of time, it's much easier than if you're trying to, Band-Aid it up, as it were.
Have those in our
Yep.
Next question.
Yeah. Mark, do we have anything on LinkedIn Live?
I wasn't saying it.
Great check.
So if you all have been in business a very long time, what was your biggest mistake and how did you end up fixing it? Or what did you learn that was your biggest help to your business after learning?
Whew.
Go ahead.
I feel like I still make mistakes all the time.
Yeah.
I think getting my contracts in order was probably one of the biggest benefits that has helped me as a service business that is focused on value and increasing growth in a business. Getting very, very specific on the contracts, I think, was really important. As I'm processing your question, I would also say messaging has been one of the bigger things that I work with clients on. I'm a business growth consultant. Yes. So I work with founders and businesses of all sizes to identify opportunities for growth, whatever that may be, in brand operations, direction, and sales, specifically under those bigger umbrellas. But what I've found, founders who are 10 plus years in business, they're not looking backwards at all, and they're not looking at their history. And a lot of times their messaging just kind of erodes over time. Their processes erode. Maybe programs aren't as efficient anymore, those kinds of things. And those need constant upkeep, in my opinion. Culture changes, people change. Like, you have to be relevant with the people you're trying to reach out to. And messaging to me is one of those things that if you're good at what you do, your customers are going to get it or they're not. And if they're good enough, or if your messaging is good enough, then it's easy to sell. But there's a lot of barriers that I find with clients that they've lost the mission, they've kind of steered away, which isn't completely normal, right? You're always focused on the next thing. I hope that's helpful. I guess
I would add two things. One is not creating your standard operating procedures from day one. I made this mistake. I'm still struggling with it. I'll be perfectly honest, right? And the reason is because if I don't want to be stuck in my business for the rest of my business, I've got to have processes in place so that I can delegate and hire people to do those things. And if you haven't created those processes, now you're backtracking. You're having to go back and say, okay, I can't teach someone how to do this unless I actually have a documented written process for it. So that's number one. Number two is managing your time blocking. I struggle with this every day, every week, is having really focused time, using your calendar in a way that you are not having squirrel syndrome. Anyone? Like shiny object syndrome. I mean, I get distracted so easily. So being really focused and consistent on managing your time. And putting boundaries between your work and your home life. Because you work a lot when you're a business owner by yourself. I spent many a week working 60, 70 hours a week, and you can't do that forever. At least I can't. I will burn out.
And to touch on that, as your business grows, 60, 70 hours a week starts to turn into 80 hours a week, starts to turn into 85, and you'll burn out if you don't delegate. So if you don't have those processes in place, and you're working 85 hours a week and you're still falling behind, it's kind of too late, right? You have to set that time aside ahead of time and at least think about it. And, you're in control of these processes. If it's not working anymore, by all means, change it, but have something written down so you can bring in the help when you need it, as opposed to, 6 months after you need it, you're going gray.
Yeah, and I would also add, this is my second business. I have a consulting business as well in disaster preparedness and business continuity. And one of the things I really found with my consulting business is that being my own boss, there was no one that I was being held accountable to. And so a lot of times the things that I didn't necessarily want to work on were put to that back burner. and they never would come kind of to the front burner. Or I would have this great idea for marketing, for like safety is 4th of July, and then be like July 8th. And I'd be like, oh, shoot. And probably didn't say that word. So I would highly encourage you to find an accountability partner. Whether you have a co-founder that you can lean on, if you have friends who are also business owners. Obviously this is what I do in my other business. So you can have peer advisory groups. You can create them with your friend group, but have them be friend groups that are also business owners. Because if they're just friends who are collecting a W-2, they're not going to know what you're going through. So, create your own, find some accountability, find other people to help you not be so alone, because it's lonely.
It is.
It's almost 10 o'clock. I'm going to make a quick announcement. If you need to leave, obviously you can, but we're going to panel can stay, some of the panel can stay a little longer. But I want you to know, next Business and Breakfast is already planned. Our speaker is here today, Gary. Talking about From Strangers to Fan, the Arts of Reaching the Right Audience. So April 1st, put that on your calendar for now. And we'll get information out soon.
I hope you see what we're doing. We're trying to create a journey for you all too, right? Let's take it from square one and then build upon that. So this is going to be really interesting as well. It's who do you talk to? What messaging do you use? What resources do you use? What vehicles, right? All of those different things. So I hope you see we're trying to build a community ourselves here for founders and people who are along this journey with us to be more successful. So that's the intention of these events.
So if you need to go, feel free. 10 o'clock.
I'd love to just piggyback off of that too and talk about more of that journey. I originally started out in marketing and branding, and I thought if I put a poster on a wall in a coffee shop, I would have to pull it down because I would just be so busy from people reaching out to me, and I received 0 leads. And working in marketing is probably not a great way to tell you all that. Like, it's not. But in my mind, I was like, oh, my rep, everybody knows that I'm a designer. This is going to be great. And
It's kind of like the shoemaker's kids don't wear shoes, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So that was one of my first journeys too. I was an individual contributor. I started freelancing and contracting, and then through circumstances, through COVID, really, it forced me to push into starting a business and starting that journey by myself. I was a sole proprietorship. Now I'm an LLC. So I want to highlight that journey as well, that I was a graphic designer. I had no business doing business consulting or anything like that. But the more experience that I attained, the more that people reinforced I have severe imposter syndrome, the more people reinforced that these skill sets are useful and valuable for them, forced me into this position. So ask your friends, ask your family, ask all of these people in your communities about you and get really weird about it. Get vulnerable about it, because that's how you're going to succeed. You have to be extremely vulnerable. I hate video. I know that a lot of us do. And we're forcing ourselves to do this for growth. And I think that's the really important piece here, is that resilience.
Kelly's the exception to the rule, of course.
Yeah.
But that to me is the resiliency and the mindset shift. I hope that's helpful. I could still be a designer, really. So
To add to that, to your question about mistakes that you made and what would you do different, and also kind of leading in from what Ian is saying is, like, you can't just put up a flyer on a wall and hope that you're going to get business, right? So as a business owner, your number one focus should always be building your pipeline, always. And that's easy to let go to the wayside when you start getting clients and start delivering services, right? And so if you stop marketing, if you stop putting sales generating activities number one on your list every single day, your pipeline will eventually dry up, or you'll lose a client and you need to replace it. And now where do you go?
love that.
Right? So sales focused whether you like it or not, as a business owner, you are in sales. You are the salesperson. You are going to be the best salesperson for your business. And so, honing in those skills, if you don't have them yet, take some classes, take some courses, educate yourself on sales, because that is going to be the make or break of a business. And 50% of businesses don't make it past their 5th year. So for lots of reasons, cash flow being one of them. Cash flow comes from having money coming in.
So I'd love to touch on something Ian said, imposter syndrome. You're going to get it. Like, that's pretty much without question. You're going to have imposter syndrome at some point. And it's actually a really interesting phenomenon, because there's an inverse relationship between the amount of stuff you know and your confidence in your knowledge. So the more you know, the less confident you become. And the less you know, the more confident you are, which is why there's a sizable percentage of people in this country that think they can win in a fist fight against a bear, right? They don't know. And so they think they can do it. But as soon as you start to learn more and learn more, you see those things that you don't know better. And then you start to feel a little bit shaky, right? Oh, I've never seen this before. Now I'm a little bit worried because I've never seen this before. But you can do it. You can get there. You can lean on experts and mentors. Mastermind groups are really great. But I really would encourage you, when you get those feelings of imposter syndrome, don't just sort of sit there and beat yourself up. That's a good thing. That means you've got enough knowledge now to see what you don't know, right? You're learning, you're growing. You're meant to feel that way.
Yeah.
Pains change.
In fact, I had a coach share with me that some imposter syndrome is very natural when you're first starting out, because you're in a learning mode. And when you're in a learning mode, you're going to have that, like, I don't know what I'm doing. And that's okay, because you're learning. So don't look at it as imposter syndrome. Look at it as, I'm learning. I'm getting more knowledge. I'm going to know this. And believe in yourself. It comes back to that mindset. And
When that swells up in me, I take a step back and I say, everything is figure outable. Everything is figure outable. I can do this. I can find resources. There's plenty of people out there that I can talk to and figure it out. So you got this.
100%.
Know that you fail a lot. That's one of the,
You really will.
I coach and I mentor a lot, and that is one of the biggest things that people come to me about, is that they have this idea, they have this product, they have this thing, this business idea or whatever it is, but they're waiting for it to be perfect. And that's one thing that I love to coach about, because it's so easy. It's never going to be perfect. Nothing is ever going to be perfect. But if you can, what I love coaching about is incremental change, right? The first one is the worst one. It's going to get easier the more that you do it. And if you plan on getting better at those pieces and getting more successful, focus on your incremental change. When you're feeling imposter syndrome, you're feeling those things, focus on what you can control, because that's all you're going to be able to handle right now. And that incremental change, looking back on that and seeing, like, okay, I know how to do this now, and that'll stack, and then that'll stack. And then I'll just eventually just get to a new level where I'm in this pasture of green and nobody's around me anymore. And like, that's what I've found really interesting. You put your head down and you grind for a long time, and not like hustle and grind culture, but like sitting down and doing the work. You're naturally just going to incrementally get better over time. And I wish that was taught more. I wish that was more of a lesson to be taught and learned, because I see a lot of people bailing on that kind of stuff these days. Yes.
That's a good question with that. So when it comes to imposter syndrome, service-oriented business, so how do you evaluate how much to charge with imposter syndrome?
Ooh, I love
start
it.
out low and then go higher, or you start out high?
work with your unique value proposition. Like, what do you bring? What is the value? And aim high. Because if you're lowballing what you're worth, who's going to want to do it? Like really, that's all it is?
Yeah.
Huh.
I think a lot of people underestimate their own value.
Yeah.
And I took a mastery course last year And one of the first exercises that we went through was to write down all of the experience, knowledge, money you have spent on yourself over the course of your life. And you went to college, you spent this much, you had this job, you made this much, you had this, like all of the different things that you've done. I'm like, I tallied it all up. In the end, I was like, I'm worth $5 million, right? And you start to elevate yourself. You're like, you know what? My experience is worth a lot, right? And don't ever discredit that, certainly. So, and yeah, I thought it was a great exercise to just really kind of hone in on like, well, how much am I worth? And can I really charge those prices, right? And sometimes you have to test the market, right? But that's kind of there's a whole training on that sort of thing, right? For pricing.
To be fair, yes, absolutely.
Great topic.
To be fair, I absolutely agree. Testing to me is super important, right? I come from a tech background. A/B testing, just do it. Like go to a networking event with no agenda, and then just say, "I'm going to give somebody an F off price right now," right? Like contractors do that a lot. I'm going to quote something so ridiculously high, it would be inconceivable for somebody to say yes. And then Alex Hormozy talks about that. If you have the clients and you have the room to give an F off price, do it, because that's how you can 5x your price, right? You're never going to know unless you test. And in my opinion, give them that price. Say like, hey, yeah, this is $5,000 a month. And if you see them visibly react to that, but I'll give you a discount for this one because you're a new customer, right? There's always things that you can...
Perception.
Yeah. And she's absolutely correct. It's value-based, right? So what is your value? To me, I still fight with that all the time. I'm still raising my prices, just, because I still reek of imposter syndrome, I feel like. So it's a journey. But I think the repetitions, for me, is what's sort of changed the game. You get out, you talk to people, you use different language. You try to pitch differently. You use different words, right? Marketing is a bad word, so I don't use that anymore. I call it growth consulting, right? Agency is a bad word. I own a consultancy, right? So it's just learning what people are going to react to and figuring that part out, in my opinion, as a service-based entrepreneur. Hope that's helpful.
And to sort of when you're starting out, you can look at competitors. Like there are other people.
You should. Yeah.
Like what are they charging?
What's the going rate?
Let's start there, and then if you have greater value than them, up the price.
Absolutely.
Right? Like if you have something special about you, you should charge more for that.
I think that's a good benchmark for you to see if your business is good anyway.
Yeah.
Right. You need to look at your competitors, see how they're talking about the same services. Yep. See who they're associated with, the clients that they're looking at, right? Those to me are opportunities. Everything is an opportunity for me. That mindset shift that we were talking about earlier, I think everything is an opportunity. Every interaction, every person that I meet, I can have an opportunity to learn more about a subject, about a person, a business. I can be selfish and think about if I can give somebody a really crazy price for a service. There's a million different things that can happen in interaction, which I find fascinating and corny too.
I cut you off.
You guys have sort of kind of answered the question. Like I'm in a service-based business and it deals with food. And so things like olive oil and chocolate, and we won't talk about eggs that have like double. But I'm almost in business 4 years now, and I've raised my prices once for one of my services by like $10. So it's just like, I don't know. If you do raise your prices, how long do you give it before you decide, ooh, this is dropping off? And I don't know. I'm really confused about that because I need to do it. Yep. But at the same time, I don't want to create a business that is so exclusive that it's just like, it's just bougie. I want a lot of people to be able to participate.
Sweet spot.
I need to make some money.
Yeah, I was going to say, are you a charity?
No.
Okay.
I do private cooking classes. And so it's like I get people that are still in college that are just trying to learn how to cook. And
Right.
I don't want to exclude those people.
Right.
Right. But at the same time, I'll be like, just 20% off if you're in college because my prices don't go down just because they're in college.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
That's
So
right.
It's like, how do you balance all that?
Well, you look at the numbers. That's where you start, right? Coming from the numbers girl, right? So you have to look at your numbers to know what are your margins, right? What is your profit? Is it enough? Are you surviving, right? And listen, every year the cost of everything goes up. And if you're not raising your prices every year, you're doing yourself a disservice.
Yeah.
Right. And
100%.
so it's really analyzing, are you actually making money off of giving those discounts? And if you're not, then you've got to make a change. Right.
I also think that you have an opportunity here.
Yep.
And that opportunity is to determine whether or not you want to try to offer your services in a different way. So currently you're bringing people into your home, if I remember correctly, and you're teaching people how to cook a particular dish from a particular area. And you have 5 or 6 specialty areas, I believe. What if you were to create an online where you host it and it's specific to those people who are trying to learn how to cook? And so then you could have 10, 20 people in the room with you, and you could offer that lower price. It's still the same amount of time for you. It gives more people exposure to it that maybe can't afford to come into your home and have the sort of, white glove experience. But it gives those people who are trying to learn it that opportunity to learn from you.
That's a great suggestion. One to many versus one-on-one.
Yeah.
Right? Having different revenue streams that serve different purposes. I like that.
Or if they're preparing their own dish, have them bring their own ingredients. Right? Here's the list of ingredients. Bring it. Right? I can provide it for this upcharge.
I always like to consult that nobody's dying in what we're doing, right? That we're not an emergency room where nothing is on fire. You have time to experiment, to try fun things, right? If you're feeling like you need more business, I think that is a great suggestion. Creating a program that could be a lead generation tool for you, right? Because and again, it's looking at the numbers, it's looking at your time and your resources, but thinking if you have extra time, why not do a little pop-up online thing? You can advertise it for a couple of weeks in advance. You can charge minimally, shoot it from your house, have everybody be digital. But that's one of the big things that I learned as a founder. One of my biggest contracts that I had was John L. Scott, a really famous real estate company here in Seattle. That connection came to me through LinkedIn 7 years later. I had worked with a woman at an agency, and then 7 years later, she reached out to me and talked to me about John L. Scott because I was posting things on LinkedIn. You never know where your next opportunity is going to come from. So to me, I treat every opportunity like it's a future relationship. And in that use case, I think that, like you're getting your name out there. You're getting it out there for cheap and not your ideal price point. But that's a loss leader to me. That's getting the information out there and getting your brand out there.
Kind of similar to what Kelly was saying, right? Like my ideal clients from my CFO practice are not startups. They're $500,000 to $5 million businesses. But I started my business because I wanted to help small business owners. And a lot of small business owners can't afford the CFO services or the higher ticket items. And so to what Amanda was saying earlier is like, so how do I feel my passion of still helping smaller businesses grow who will eventually potentially be my clients? And I did that by creating a community that's low entry price, right, to get into. And that's kind of my passion projects, right? But it's not, I don't put as much hours into that, right? So from a bottom line perspective, I'm still making plenty on my net profits, but that's nurturing a whole group of people that can eventually be brought up to, right? Does that make sense?
The future is relationship building, by the way, if any of you all had questions about that. In my opinion, I think the future is relationships. AI, all of those tools, all of that technology to me is going to be a tool to help you reach out to people. But at the end of the day, I think people need to build, we're human, we're community-based people, we're tribal. We need people around us. No tool is going to solve that, I believe. And it's going to be coming back to building authentic relationships with people. Yeah. In my opinion, that's what I think the future is going to be, where we're going.
And actually, the more noise there is out there in the universe, the more important it's going to be to sit in a room and shake someone's hand, because it's the only way you're going to cut through, thousands of hours of AI video.
And yeah, be selfish, right? Think about yourself. I am pitched at least probably 10 times a day, like cold pitched. I will never respond to them. I would much rather be in person with somebody having a conversation, if that's over video or whatever. But think about yourself selfishly. Do those tactics actually work? Statistically, no. And that's what I would love for you all to run away with here, is that relationship building is going to be the way forward for everybody, regardless of your business.
Yeah, and I think going along with your relationship thing,
The technical term.
that's a real technical term.
Conspiracy theory.
You know, as I look around the room and I think of conversations or why people are here, he wouldn't be here if it hadn't been for us working together beforehand. And I was like, you need to start getting into networking groups, and I want you to join the Magnolia Chamber. And so he then was like, really? And I'm like, yeah, now. So he joined this morning. Pam and I are chatting, and I'm like, you know, I have a former member who is looking to potentially go into bookkeeping. I'd love to connect you. She's like, oh my gosh, I'm actually in a position where I might be needing someone. So those relationships and that knowing of what one another offer and trusting and liking one another is powerful, really powerful. And so, you know, I think like Ian said, every opportunity of meeting somebody is an opportunity for you to either help them or them to potentially help you or help someone that you know. And it's, you know, this know, like, trust relationship building. That's
Think about that mindset shift too, right? I've been coaching a lot in sales recently. Think about, like, when you're going to a networking event, you're going to an event or something, anything, right? The majority of people are going to ask you to buy their service at networking events and all those things. What if you differentiated a little bit and started talking about the person instead? Instead of saying, hey, my name is Ian, do you want to buy my service? Ask them about their business. Ask them how it is going. Ask them about their problems. Ask them about, have they tried these things? Try to problem solve with them. What is going to be more genuine and more warm in that way? I could count on one hand how many people I've reached out to after networking events, and I've been to probably hundreds. Kelly was absolutely correct. Testing my language, pitching, doing all of those things were through chambers, through networking events, and all of those pieces. That's how I honed. That's how I learned to talk about business growth consulting instead of a marketing agency, right? Because I got out there and I fell on my face. I had people laugh at me. I had people tell me this was never going to work. I had all of those things. And my spiteful, revenge-driven self said that's not going to happen. But that's how I learned, is to do those things. So,
All right, one more chance for the microphone. Anybody?
And one last thing I'd like to share is when you are at networking events and you're doing your elevator pitch, I want you to be thinking about what is in it for them.
Yeah.
Not why are you passionate? Why are you doing this? What makes you so good? But what are you going to give them at the end of the day? What's the value? Because if you can really identify that value that they're going to walk away from, then you're going to have somebody who's really interested in, I need that. That's you're talking to me because I need that. So think about it from that perspective. It's not about you. It's about what can you do for them.
that's how you 5x your price.
Love
too.
that. Yeah.
Okay, panel, last question. One thing that doesn't necessarily keep you up at night, but you over and over again think, if more of these people I talked to knew that one thing, it would solve a lot of their problems for years to come.
Yeah, I suppose I'll just go with what I do with legal. You can't buy insurance for a car that's already on fire, right? Similarly, you can't buy a contract for a deal that's already happened. You can't get an operating agreement to govern a relationship between you and a business partner if you're already in business for 5 years and you're fighting now, right? Once that bad thing has happened, it's too late. You gotta be proactive. You gotta be proactive with your taxes, with your bookkeeping, with your marketing, with your legal. You gotta go and talk to the experts, and you get out what you put in, and you got to do it ahead of time, because once the bad thing happens, it's a lot more time, a lot more stress, and you know, it's just not a great way to live your life.
Love it. So selfishly, I'm going to tell you about what my business provides that people need to think about. And that is cash flow. If you don't have cash, you don't have a business, right? So to my point about asking if are you running a charity, right? Which was tongue in cheek, certainly. If you're not paying attention to the money that's going into and out of your business, you will not be in business. And so that's what keeps me up at night, is knowing that I'm helping my clients make sure that they are looking at the right numbers in their business to prepare for, to set up a reserve cash fund for emergencies. So paying attention to your cash flow is pretty critical to surviving.
Don't do it alone.
Yeah.
I mean, bottom line, you're not going to have all the answers. Lean on mentors, lean on co-founders, lean on peers, but find people who can help to support you and help you come up with ways to be resilient, ways to pivot, ways to build your business creatively. Because what's working right now may not work. I mean, the pandemic was a very good example of that. It killed my consulting business, absolutely killed it. Because my clientele, for the most part, were businesses that had me come in to educate their staff on what they should be doing to be prepared at home. Well, when everybody was sent home, they didn't really need Kelly to come in. So, you know, it's have a group of people that you can go to, that you can bounce ideas off, find solutions to challenges that you're facing.
Know that you're playing the infinite game. That's the number one lesson that I still keep front of mind for myself. You can take that a lot of different ways, but in my opinion, playing the infinite game, knowing that even if your business fails, you're still going to be here, right? So every interaction, every opportunity, every person that you talk to could feed you years later. That's been my literal experience. I think that knowing that nothing about this is finite. If you want to, and that now it's to the point where, you know, you're talking about mindset shifts. The infinite game to me is looking back and thinking about going back to a company and working as an individual contributor. That to me is the end. I never want to go back there. I can't. Yeah, absolutely. I can't. So I think that's been the biggest lesson for me, is knowing that, like, I'm playing the infinite game and I will never see the finish line. That's Warren Buffett, right? He's still the CEO at 95 years old. Like, that to me is what I want. I want to be playing the infinite game passionately, knowing that I'm helping people and knowing that I'm having fun doing it. That's the only way you're going to survive, in my opinion, or the way I have survived. So, yeah.
Entrepreneurship's hard. You gotta have fun.
You have
Gotta enjoy it.
Why are we here?
It's
if
hard.
we're not? Yeah, I agree.